Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of It's Not Between Two Keep Stars because I don't have any material. So we're going to do something different. And wait, yeah, we're going to do something different. And to help me, we have here the fourth best FC in the entirety of Pappy, Middle Management Musky. That was a really shit intro. Anyway, you want to introduce yourself, Musky?
Hi, I'm Musky, one of the FCs in Happy and Horde. I'm the military director of my corporation, Busa.
He is also the the primary contact for drone SRP in the whole of Pandemic Horde. So if you're in Horde and you lose some drones, you know who to contact. So this week it's been pretty interesting, war. A lot of keep stars dying. What are your thoughts on that, Muskie? It's all the shit exploding.
It's just business as usual, continuing to glass delve, and goons have come out a few times to fight, and we've responded appropriately.
Were there any standout fights that you were pretty proud of?
Yesterday was a pretty nice one.
Could you elaborate?
Yeah, we had the Keepstar Hub timer for UEXO, which is the staging Keepstar for one of the SIGs. And we formed up pretty early. Goons formed up almost right away as soon as we pinged. They jumped in system, and then we all jumped in system, and they used the new fleet formation, which kind of spread them out between three bubbles because of the spread on the fleet formation. And then at that point, we all warped on top of them, and they were mostly run mode, was what it looked like to me. It's about 55 to 8 bill or something along those lines.
What I know about the fight last night, I believe it was last night, they got hell dunked like 55 bill to like 8. But don't worry, guys, somehow. Still haven't figured that out yet. Which brings me to the next question. Muskie, are goons winning?
Of course, goons are winning. Why would you say anything different?
So all the keep stars that have been dying recently, that's just a fluke.
Yeah, they've already written them off, so they're winning by making us bashing structures.
Now, how do you really feel? Like memes aside.
Like, no memes. They went around the universe and hit on everybody that's here to hit on them. So anytime they cry about 3v1 advantage, that's just how wars work, unfortunately, for them.
You would think that that goons would realize that one of these days, everything they've ever done to everyone in the galaxy might come back to bite them in the ass.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the second time that the universe has gone against them, right? Or B2 and all.
Last time it was quote unquote cheated ISK. And that was the only reason why people went against them. Had nothing to do with the fact that they had pissed off all of LowSec.
I was not involved in that war. I was on deployment at the time, IRL, so.
Well, TLDR, pretty much the same thing happened. That's happened back then. That's happening now, except Matani decided to take his entire coalition and put them in a low sec staging system of Saranin. to which the entirety of the game just started camping the single low sec structure, which resulted in Goonswarm and the Imperium losing hundreds of members every day. Like they were bleeding record numbers.
You got to remember that was back before Citadels, right? So Citadels are now a thing. It's a lot harder to camp people in structures, and there's asset safety. Granted, all the asset safety will go to one system if and when 1DQ falls.
I mean, is it really an if at this point?
It's in their hearts that it won't fall. It's in my hearts that it will. So that remains to be seen.
So I guess from an FC perspective, like what is the point of letting all these keep stars fall? Like is because correct me if I'm wrong, they specifically talked about how okay, we're gonna move it to EUTZ and give our USTZ guys a break, and then we're really gonna start hammering and defending. But the past two keep stars haven't been defended. They've just been blue balls and just resulted in more dead keep stars.
We saw it in F2OY, right? That they were going to mount a defense on the armor timer, and then when we brought more than they expected, I think they decided to just leave instead of feeding, or if they thought they were going to feed, rather. I can't actually speculate on Goon comms or anything like that.
Okay. Now, one of the things too that I was actually wondering about, well, I know this personally, but I haven't said anything about the show. Also, Musky, you just had someone by the name of Musky's biggest fangirl just followed. So I think you've got a secret admirer in chat. Anyway, so you were one of the FCs that were very much involved in M2. Could you tell us a little bit about that? About what it took to get those Titans out?
About what the defending the iHub, or just like killing the Keepstar in general?
Just killing the Keepstar in general.
It was pretty much the same thing. We put the jammer up, ref the Keepstar, and they didn't really contest us. They didn't contest us at all on any of the timers, so not really a lot to say.
Did they really even make much of an attempt to actually contest the node and the hub so that they would prevent you from putting up a jam?
I didn't see one real contest on an initial toast on the iHub.
And yet somehow Goons are winning. So with the war as it's standing now, I guess, what are your thoughts on the overall progress?
I think, especially post M2, we've made significant progress. As you've seen, we've flipped all the iHubs, managed to hold all but one iHub, which did get flipped in a late US timer, which stuff does happen. So we'll just have to kill that Keepstar in a little while. Not a big deal. We have plenty more to go through, but I'm not exactly sure how Goons are doing in one constellation. And a whole alliance of that scale, one constellation can't be good, but I don't have any direct like access to how that's actually going or not.
Well, supposedly, I mean, we saw last night that because we dropped on a mining fleet that they are doing some sort of ISK making in that one constellation, but an entire coalition of was it 50,000 people in that one constellation all trying to make ISK at the same time, that's got to get congested like pretty rapidly.
Well, I'm sure they have alts in high sec or low sec and maybe other alliances. They've got they've got some SIGs over in legacy space and everything too. So
before they're ratting and mining in X legacy space, that'd be one hell of a turn of events. It's like, hey guys, we're not just burning down all of legacy space. We're gonna go and live there now. Just completely flip. Like, yeah, they can have Delve, and we'll just take their old space. But based off of what the Matani says, that's not going to happen because they're choosing to die and delve, which was interesting because so during the meta show they had actually talked about, not during the meta show, during the fireside chat they talked about how they're going to stay here and they're going to fight till the end, no retreat. And it was funny because just recently the what was it the F2O Keepstar died, which was their only way out, or their pretty much their last remaining way out.
It's
So
their last star that would get them to another region, yes. But obviously, there's still 4 stars, Master Houses, or they could try to use a POS. Like it's not.
for all intents and purposes, there is no retreat is no longer an option.
That's their last 100% safe way to leave, basically.
So also recently, there's been a lot of talk about this beacon, the Great Beacon in AJI. How has that really affected the? I guess has that given Pappy a real advantage, or is it just pretty much providing free kill mails?
A little bit of both. We're gaining on what, almost $1 trillion to all 3 beacons somewhere on. I think the site has a total amount somewhere on the beacon
Wait,
provides.
there's 3 beacons,
There's 3 beacons, yes.
and people have just been jumping to these and dying.
Yeah, almost daily. There's at least one or two. I think 2 at least this morning. 2 carriers to AGI. Had the 65 bill Rhea the other day to AJI as well.
So it's just one of the. Are these? I'm guessing these are just meant to sort of just try to wear down as many numbers as possible. But if they don't do their job, it's like, whatever.
It's just content beacons.
So no real strategic importance, really.
Dank frags is strategic. Yeah.
That's a really good point. So when the time finally comes to actually go and siege 1DQ, are there really any plans on how to do that? Because from the looks of it, it's gonna be tough, especially considering from what I believe, they just anchored another Keepstar in 1DQ.
I mean, even if I had knowledge of that, I obviously wouldn't share it here. But like, yeah, it's always going to be tough. Like, this is known, a public knowledge that's a hugely spammed grid, especially in the first grid, and the Keepstar on the iHub, as well as the faction fort that's in direct range of the iHub and the TCU that can gun anything that attempts to Antosis it.
Right, right. So one thing I also want to ask is, what's been your most enjoyable moments of the war, besides constantly killing Dave Archer fleets? I know that's definitely something that you enjoy.
I mean, I just enjoy killing goons in general, PvPing in general. FCing is really fun. The max and on the tie-dye fests are kind of boring. The M2 armor timer was really fun. My Titan got DD'd near the end of night before downtime, but I had fun overall the whole time. Definitely could have had a lot more fun on the whole timer if the server would have accepted more jumps.
That was kind of a yeah, no, the whole timer was not a small fuck up, but it's definitely something that goons aren't gonna let Pappy forget, considering that's really seems to be the only victory they can really point to, and even then it didn't really end up as a victory because it pretty much locked down their entire super capital fleet to camping that one system, because if they left to go and shoot other things, our Titans would just get out, which they kind of probably should have done in the first place. I mean, at the end, did M2 really help them or did it hurt them more? All right. So I don't know if you've noticed this, but it feels like with goons, whenever they actually go and try to do something, they'll win an objective, and then they won't follow up. I think it was last Friday, they were herf blurfing about oh yeah, we reinforced an iHub, and then a day later when the toasting contest came, they just didn't really show up in much force, and we easily took it back. Is that something that's been super common to
I
where they would?
mean, if that's talking about PS94, which we recently regained, when we lost that, I hope that was that. I want to say 03, 04, 0500 night. I can't remember if I didn't go well for us and we lost the iHub, but when we refed it and we immediately took it back without a contest, then yeah, there are some things they don't contest. That's very weird, but I would say most of the time that they do contest, we usually win the fight. So they've of course have won fights. That's true.
I mean, you would hope so, because like if they keep getting their ass stomped, eventually they'll. I mean, no matter what Matani says, they will lose their morale and they will stop logging in, and it will no longer be fun. However, killing keep stars is still kind of fun. It's just the initials and the armor timers kind of suck.
Yeah. Should have two more kills tomorrow, and we'll see about the other ones.
Also, I'm just now seeing in chat that SRP's Lashaks. Musky, can you confirm or deny this?
Yeah, when they're used on strategic levels, of course.
All right, so you heard it here, folks. Alexis Lambert is SRP for all Lashaks. Okay, so what else were we going to talk about? All right, so recently goons have been herf blurfing a lot about the what was it, about the burning of the legacy regions, and I keep saying that it's like, okay, legacy has said they don't really care about those regions anymore. The whole thing is delve, 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 but yet they keep losing stuff. What is that? I guess what's that been like from an FC standpoint? Is it just like, yeah, no, we really don't care?
I mean, especially not being in any of those alliances, I don't really doesn't really bother me. We're going to keep pushing goons in as much as we can the whole time. Like at this point, those alliances probably have abandoned their structures because most of them seem to not be gunned. Looking at it in the kill mails, so
Would you say that them losing all that space is really affecting the war on the legacy side, or not really?
considering they're moving into Quirius, I don't really see an effect, my knowledge. But I'm not in Legacy or Test to have any real knowledge.
Yeah, because definitely from a pan fan perspective, it feels like I made this analogy, I think, 2 weeks. Then invades Brazil. That doesn't affect the U.S. war effort because the U.S. is still strong. Yeah, Brazil's getting its ass kicked, but like they're not the ones trying to kill you.
Well, that'd be like if all the residents of Brazil just packed up, left a few houses, and went to like Mexico to live there, and then the Mexicans all invaded Brazilians and took over the space over there, or killed whatever's left over there. It's really not as important.
But again, somehow goons are still claiming victory because of it. It's like, yay, you killed the regions that nobody actually really cares about. But I
I
guess
mean,
at the same,
if that's what makes them happy. That's what makes them happy.
very true. So before we go on, is there anything that you specifically wanted to talk about or wanted to herf blurf?
Not really. I've just enjoyed goons getting out there and mostly USTZ and actually having a fight and doing some attempting at fighting recently. It's been kind of nice. So
Yeah, no, it's definitely was good. It's kind of cool because I've been seeing like a lot of different PanFam FCs, or not PanFam, but Goon FCs I haven't really seen in a while. Because at the beginning of the war, it seemed to be like just Asher, and maybe every once in a while you'll see Tom Flood. But now I've definitely seen a lot more of, well, especially Tom Flood, Dave Archer, and some other FCs that I don't know their names. Has it been interesting going against different FCs?
I mean, yeah. With the hack meta, most of it is the same thing. We either chase each other down if they either chase Serbs down if they're in Serbs, or for Armenians, we're just seeing who can volley as much Logi and DPS before the other guy. So the FC in that case is not really a difference in tactics.
Would you say if that, I guess out of all the Imperium FCs that you've faced, which would be the most difficult to fight and the easiest to fight in your perspective?
Like I said, I don't know. They're all about the same to me. Like we're all about the same. Probably I'm pretty close to the same as them. Like I don't know. It's all situational. They're all fighting an uphill battle. I would say 90% of the time, right? So it's a little bit different way of trying to always fight uphill than like us. We're gonna have numbers advantage most of the time. So unless you really mess it up, you can't really lose unless you mess it up. But none of their FCs are like feel any different to me fighting, easier or harder.
All right, yeah, that makes sense. We actually have a question in chat now that's from Key22. It says, which FCs are the best feeders in Pappy? Personally, I think that's Alexis.
Well, X numbered X is Alexis. I mean, in Pappy, I don't. Maybe Jeremy. He likes to feed procurers. I heard on R64s.
And I'm going to flip that question and say, who do you think the best feeders in Imperium are?
I mean that I've seen. I mean, all the USTZ FCs seem to mostly feed to me, like all of them. Like I don't have a specific one that I can think of, but I mean I respect all of them, and we all GF each other, so there's no like any hard feelings or shit talk there.
So what you're basically saying is that, well, a way to say what you're saying is that whenever you go and fight goons, it's like going to an all-you-can-eat buffet in terms of feeding.
Not every time, but sometimes it does feel like that. Like last night, it was mostly just munching. It was a nice snack.
Yeah, no, last night was interesting because we were already winning, and then the next thing you know, PL drops dreads, and NC drops. Actually, I don't know if NC drops, but PL drops a bunch of haw dreads, and just almost just starts overkilling them. Like they were already dying. What's Let's just kill them more, and then they just ended up leaving, and then fed more stuff on the gate. Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, definitely, it wasn't a good tactical move there, but obviously we're all still new to the fleet formations and the way that when you warp in a sphere like that, when bubbles are in a line, you're warping at an angle. I saw the same thing myself when I warped back to the gate, that it split the fleet in threes because you're warping it at an angle, but your sphere, so they're getting dragged to different bubbles.
Speaking of fleet formations, how have fleet formations really impacted the game, and impacted you as an FC? Have you
Makes it
found
a lot
them
harder
useful?
to get bombed or to bomb people if used correctly. And as we've seen, also speaking of yesterday, the fleet formations can be used incorrectly, as it seems. But it seems to make a huge difference in like keeping bumps, everybody spread out, so you can't get chemoed as much. I still see people do get chemoed when they're kind of in a rush to move around and ping, so people are still getting chemoed and bombed, just not as often, I think.
What do you think the most useful formation in your experience has been so far?
The wall is really good to stay spread out. Like if you're warping to a structure, you want to keep spread out. And then, I mean, I think the ball is the most used one. The sphere, I mean, sorry.
Okay. And I'm guessing that's to avoid getting bombed as well, and
Yeah,
getting
bomb.
structured.
Yep. Yep. And structure bombs, keeping spread out, keeping the Logi happy.
Okay. Another question that actually just came up is, what do you think the biggest misconception about how this war is going is? Which is a super weird one, but I'm gonna go with it.
I mean, the fact that goons think they're winning, because like anybody with in their right mind would beg to differ. I think like anybody, even probably most goon line members.
Well, it's funny because like when you really look at it, like I don't. It seems like there's only like a few like goons that really like to tout the whole, besides Ventani, that we're like the whole we're winning narrative. Because I guess if you talk to just like random goons in a scenario, like I was talking to a goon in the Trash Talk Tuesday pre-show, and she pretty much just said, "Yeah, we're probably losing," but then you go onto any Twitch channel, they'll immediately say, "Yay, we're winning!" Hashtag M2 for life. So it definitely seems. I don't want to say it's a vocal minority, but it's definitely a smaller group of very vocal people that seem to not know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I
And again,
mean,
those
there's
are
always going to be that, no matter what, like what alliance you're in or what alliance you're doing. It's just a lot of it's just propaganda, and like I said, most of the line members from either side just kind of is there to PvP, and they ignore most of the propaganda.
I guess what's so just based on what you've been saying, I'm guessing you think that this whole propaganda stuff is just, I don't want to say bad, but very cringy.
Oh, of
At least
course
that's
it's
what I.
cringy. Like it's always how it has been with goons. They've always had some cringe propaganda, and people are way out of touch. But I'm just gonna keep fighting the good fight, and I ignore pretty much all of that.
Also, someone in chat just asked, Musky, do you praise the AJIMA beacon?
Of course, I praise all the beacons: AGI, 1SMEB, and 5C.
Has anyone actually jumped to 5C?
Yeah, I've had like 3 capitals jump to it in the last week since it's been up.
You would think that eventually, like, people would realize that it's a trap, or goons would send a ping saying, "Hey, don't jump to these beacons."
I mean, I could only imagine that. I'm sure they have, but people are, if you're not paying attention, you're moving a lot of things, or if they're evacing. I can't say whether any of them are evacing or not, or they might have been moving into 1DQ. They jump to the beacon if they're not paying attention. That's just what happens when people aren't paying attention 9 times out of 10.
I mean, at least we get kills out of it. I mean, it sucks for
Oh,
them,
that's
but
the
it
point.
doesn't suck for us. So yeah, another thing too was with all these with all these sotios and structures killing, do you see Horde or Pappy having any sort of fatigue with all this? Because
Not that
getting
I've
destroying
seen.
structures has got to be boring. Like you
I mean, it's
got to the point
boring,
where,
but people are pretty keen to burn down goon stuff no matter what. So
so it's almost like, oh hey, yeah, we're doing this thing that sucks, but at least we're burning shit down, kind of thing.
pretty much.
Okay. Gonna go back into chat. Eredice says the beans are happy bashing. There's a guy saying I'm Tyrion. I'll argue regarding to the pings. The only ping from the M2 evac. Uh, so yeah. Oh, there's something I want to see. So recently, there's been some quality of life updates. How do you liking the quality of life updates?
Well, I like the emergency warp disable function is really nice update. Obviously, the fleet formations is a quality of life update. Getting rid of ECM bursting will be really huge. There's a couple of dudes on both sides. Um, that have a lot of alts that ECM burst. I'm sure the Entosis guys will be very happy, especially when those go away.
Also, someone in chat just said that apparently we seem very neutral regarding Goons versus Pappy. So we need to turn up the pro Pappy Goons bad.
I mean,
I'll
of
start with
course, I
Gertrude.
love shooting goons, but I'm not like, oh my god, it's a goon, I really hate you, I'm gonna shit talk everything you own. I'm here to PvP, I'm here for the content at the end of the day.
So Y2K to respond to you. This show is a little bit neutral, but if you want the whole like anti goons, that's where you're going to get Trash Talk Tuesday, the premiere show on New Eden Post, which I would definitely recommend you watch because you get some pretty good laughs. And occasionally you'll have Billy yelling at Big Bill the Boss. Which, by the way, how has it been working with Billy?
It's good. No complaints here.
Would you say he seems like a quite a competent leader?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't really know where I was gonna go off with that. So there was a while back I heard a story about the whole after M2 really wasn't really in a good state of mind. Would you be willing to comment on that, the whole events after M2 and what really brought Pappy back
I mean, I
after
don't
those
think
events?
anybody was happy with that. I know there were some people on your side that was like, we really wanted this fight. It kind of sucks. I'm glad we won, but it kind of sucks. But none of us were happy. But most of us pushed through it and continued our efforts until broke out. We killed another Keepstar before we even got the final breakout, but just kept pushing on through, and that's the way you win wars. You don't give up. So
I guess what kind of tactics did so Goons pretty much had a capital advantage in and after M2. What did Pappy really end up employing in order to, I guess, gain back their momentum?
we did a lot of bluff stuff. Took down any antiplexes or beacons or jammers we could, and kind of gave them the runaround.
So, from what you're saying is you when you attack targets, but then when goons would show up, you would run away and make them chase you.
Yeah, and then while somebody else would be attacking another target, and so on and so on.
And roughly, how long did Pappy have to do that?
I don't remember exactly. I don't think it was more than like a week before we did the first M2 breakout.
Now, something that Pappy did end up doing quite a lot was constantly going in and shooting bubbles. Uh, the goal obviously being to try and break out your stuff, but a lot of times it would just be Pappy would go in, shoot a couple bubbles, and leave. Uh, what was the what was the goal of that? Was that just to waste as many bubbles as you could?
I mean, there was that part of it, but more of it just, make them jump back as many times as we can, keep them busy.
Would you say that was interesting content? Because bubbles do provide kill mails, and the goons were very eager to send their fighters over.
Oh yeah, we get plenty of content out of it too. Sometimes we got fights out of it a few different times. One notable fight we had was on the Keepstar or the iHub Fort Desire they owned, which was on our iHub because we toasted the iHub they dropped when they tried to regain it after we killed it. Uh, One of the Goon FCs came in with a smaller mutant fleet than my mutant fleet of Horde alone and thought he was going to fight me. It was very interesting. But they definitely had some good content, like fight wise there.
How did you guys end up dealing with the fighters that ended up like being voted over from the Keepstar?
I mean, we had our own grams. We had, other ships. We would all be spread out, and generally when the fighter blob comes, it was time to leave and subcaps because there was a lot of fighters.
So it was just a general thing of, hey, come in, wreck some stuff, and leave once they got home.
Yeah,
And so that happened, and then finally the breakout, the one of the bigger breakout attempts came where Pappy pretty much just dropped a bunch of dreads. I guess, can I get your perspective on that fight and what your basically your role in that fight of the first real breakout from Pappy?
I mean, I was one of the subcap FCs. I mean, it was pretty simple. We dropped dreads on their titans that aggressed at range and killed some of their titans while we broke out mostly anybody that was online on the bottom there.
From your perspective, was that definitely a successful, and was it worth the amount of dreads that were fed?
1,000,000% successful and worth the amount of dreads.
There was some talk about what it takes to replace all those dreads. Uh, are you confident that Pappy was easily able to replace all those dreads and get them back out?
Everybody in my corp that lost their dreads had a new dread the next day. So that's as far as I know, anyways.
And how many dreads did your corp lose, if you don't mind me asking?
I'd have to look that up.
Well, I guess a better question would be that the corps aren't directly responsible for replacing the dreads. That's done on an alliance level, correct?
Yeah, that's almost every alliance does that. That's correct.
Okay, so it really didn't. So one corp didn't get like screwed out of more SRP than the other.
No,
So that's
everybody in the alliance got SRP for it, not just my corp. But I can only speak to my corp mates as being having them the next day. So
and okay, yeah, well, that's pretty cool. So after the whole M2 fight, there was also some talk about how Pappy was having some trouble replacing Titans. Would you say that you guys were that I guess Horde, in your case, was able to replace its Titans?
as far as I know, yeah, mine have been replaced. All the corp members that I've talked to have been replaced, so it's not can't spin it as just because I'm an FC. It's everybody that I know of has, yes.
And were you yourself actually trapped in M2 for the duration of that time?
I had a few different accounts trapped there, yes.
And I guess, well, my question would be is how did it affect your morale? Because if you ask anyone on the other side, if you ask anyone on both sides, they'll say, Pappy will say, oh, well, we didn't really care much. And then, of course, you'll have the goons say, oh, well, you didn't get to play for for 2 months and yada, yada, yada. You got left behind. I guess from the perspective of someone that was actually trapped in M2, how did having your stuff trapped affect you? Or did
I mean, it sucks, of course, that they mostly got trapped because of the server. But I mean, maybe my perspective a little flawed because I was one of the FCs making sure that we were getting out every day. But maybe some of the line members that maybe had their main in a Dread or a Titan, God forsake, and which you should never do, by the way, have a main in a Titan. Um, but most people knew that we were doing everything we can to get them out.
So there wasn't this whole sentiment of, oh, well, we've been left behind.
I mean, not to my public knowledge in like our alliance for say, like I said, I'm not in these other alliances, so I can't say for certain that is or isn't a thing.
But from your perspective, everyone was taken care of.
Yeah, to my knowledge, yes.
Okay, well, that's good. So the idea to feed a bunch of dreads, to basically sacrifice dreads in order to get our titans out. It that happened like a month after after Pappy got trapped. What I guess what was the reason for waiting, or why was it a month? Why wasn't it like a week or two after?
That is a wonderful question that I don't actually know the answer, buddy.
Because I have heard that it was, well, to let their numbers sort of dwindle down and sort of get them to, I guess, get bored. Which
I
is what
mean,
I've heard.
like I said, I don't have the answer to that. I was not privy to that information, and whether I was or wasn't, I would obviously speculate on that.
All right. Speaking of speculation, I know you said you just don't speculate, but we're going to speculate now. How many months do you think it's going to take for us to actually break 1DQ? Because that is not going to be a
Oh, I
fun
mean,
ride.
I'm sure it'll take some time. I don't know, a couple. It's not going to be like, oh my god, we're going to go in there tonight and ref everything and kill all the keep stars. It's going to take a lot of time. There's a lot of keep stars, a lot of faction forts. The faction fort on the iHub, getting the initial toast off in itself on the iHub is going to be a fight. And then also killing the iHub will be another fight, especially since they have constellational jammer superiority.
Okay, and looking at the geography, there seems to be only like really two ways into that constellation. If because it's connected to Quirius, so you could go through Quirius and get in, or you could go through T5ZI, which is a gate that's constantly camped. Um, if I let's just say, for instance, we were going 1DQ was going to be attacked tomorrow, or we were going to attack that constellation tomorrow. In your personal opinion, do you think it would be better for us to basically ram our Titans through the gate, or go back through Quirius? Personally, I think Quirius going through Quirius would probably be the best option because again, that perma gate camp.
I mean, at the end of the day, I am not like any of the cap FCs or Super Titan FCs. They tell me, hey, go FC the subcap, either go in there or don't go in there, or do this or do that. But I mean, the way I look at it, it's going to be a very difficult constellation. Several of the goon people guys on, I think like TTT or what Metashow have already said, like they don't expect NTAC 8 and 3D to really maybe not make it, but they think they can maybe hold it. But the fact that they should still be able to hold 1DQ and the back three systems, it's definitely going to be a fight, a really long, drawn out tie-dye fight. Uh,
Yeah, because when you think about it, if Pappy is able to unjam a few of those systems and then reinforce 1DQ, then the nodes that come out will be in unjammed systems.
Yeah, I mean, if we get all the jammers down, of course, getting the iHubs reft in the first place, especially 1DQ iHubs, since there's Keepstar on grid with it that they can Skynet fighters from, and they can sit their battleship fleet and their faxes on the faction Fortizar, which is in direct range of the iHub, will be a very interesting, like I said, long out tie-dye fest, more than likely.
Have their battleship fleets been very effective recently? Because I know for 1DQ they've started using a lot of Baltex.
I mean, with the hack nerf, we have definitely seen an increase in use with them because they do track a lot better against mutants. But I, but yeah, I've definitely seen them use their Baltex, and they've been very effective, especially under a jammer where they can indiscriminately use faxes. We did have a fight the other day where Pro God Legend was the test FC, and one of the supers got killed in a safe, and the battleship fleet came in, and we mopped up pretty well. We came out really well ahead. That was also the same day that the Titan died to the beacon. Um, and then yeah, because we killed a lot of faxes and we're able to drag a lot of the faxes. So the key to those battleship fleets is keeping their faxes alive, which means the jammer needs to be up, and they need to clear as much DPS. So if there's too much DPS on the field and the faxes die, those fleets kind of don't work as well because we can volley through Guardian reps pretty easy.
One thing with the faxes too is that they can't receive reps while they're in triage. So the minute they go triage, and if we have enough DPS that we can delete faxes, it becomes a pretty dangerous scenario.
Of course.
Because like a single fax is worth what, like 6, 7 hacks, and that's made out of minerals, which are right now on a shortage and going up. So that makes it even worse of a loss. Unlike a unlike a hack where it's less mineral heavy and more like T2 heavy. And that's with battleships as well. because battleships have been going up.
Yeah, definitely see a increase in use by them, but I mean, as they lose them, I don't know what their stash looks like, but obviously we have ore scarcity to take into account as well. It's probably a lot easier to source like hacks than it is for SMP than it is battleships, but I mean they've been in Delve for years, right? So
Would you say the plan before taking 1DQ would be more of, hey, let's try to go through as much of their stuff as possible? Because it seems to make sense. Because what I've noticed is that Pappy will continue to take out fleets just to go for content, but then they'll win a huge battle. Is that more? Would you say there's sort of? Would you say that also has the effect of weaning down a lot of their stockpiles, and thus giving Pappy an even greater upper hand in the war?
I mean that's of course that's probably a fair assessment on that one. Just burning as much as we can, keeping all their industry is in one constellation. So even if they have like a stockpile of ore, which I'm sure they do, it gets very expensive to build in one constellation, right?
Right. And have you? So one of the things that I was actually also wondering about was, I guess the Pappy logistic, because losing a bunch of those, like losing a bunch of dreads, is definitely not something that they can just easily do. But yet Pappy was able to easily replace them. There are structures that have been anchored in Delve that are owned by Pappy that do a lot of production, um, as well as Pappy not having space to go back home and build stuff in. Uh, do you see Pappy actually like making use of that of Delve already to sort of rebuild their stockpiles as they lose them for the war during the war?
I mean, I'm sure they have. I'm not an industry guy or anything to do with that stuff, so I can't say for certain. But like as a line member, like looking at it, I'm sure you see Satios, and what do you think? Cat production probably.
Okay. And another thing too, I've kept wondering. One of the things I've kept wondering is that after Horde and Pan Fam leaves, I guess what is the future of that region? Because if we don't, because goons get kicked out of 1DQ, and then they move all their stuff near to basically NPC Delve. We're no longer there. What's to stop goons from just retaking Delve?
Uh, I mean, depending on how solidified test is, it might take a while. If and when they can take them out, whether goons lose corpse or whether they actually do go to NPC Delve or they decide to move to a different region to try to survive. I can't know for sure.
Do you do you think there would be some sort of contingency where basically PanFan would jump back down and help them kill some stuff, and just
I
in case
don't
their shit
know.
got supported? Okay, so okay, that makes sense. Uh, I guess that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to talk about. Muskie, do you have anything else that you wanted to say before we wrap things up?
Not really. Just happy to keep doing the good fight, and goons just keep trying to keep fighting us. I'm happy to fight all the time.
All right. And actually, no, there is a final question. Uh, if you could fight one Imperium FC, just like one, for the rest of the war, who would it be?
I mean, probably Dave. Me and Dave are usually the ones fighting each other in US time zone, so just used to each other. I think at this point.
Fair answer. Alrighty, and with that, that wraps up the show. I want to thank, well, the one guest, sort of, kind of, for this week. And if you're watching the show and you like what you see, then please hit the follow button. You can post streams Eve-related shows throughout the week, including Trash Talk Tuesday on Tuesday, Lasers and Lace on Thursday, and Between Two Keep Stars every other Sunday. Uh, we'll be back with our regular show the next time. And yeah, fly safe.